2023 was a turbulent year for the world and a baffling one on the internet. Wars raged and cities burned, while people took sides and lost their minds.
That back there is not real!
It was a year for sky watchers and sun starers, as UFOs, airplanes, and giant balloons distracted us from what was happening on the ground. COVID might be pretty much Ovid, but now every part of the world is getting down with its own unique kind of sickness. North Africa caught the coup, Western Europe ran a fever, while South America went fucking loco. TikTok has given impressionable teenagers and narcissistic attention seekers a touch of the tism, along with ADHD, PTSD, and NPC, whatever that means.
Ice cream so good, yes, yes, yes.
While in politics, it was a year of incompetence and incontinence. The leaders who aren't straight-up con men are so close to death that they keep getting distracted by spectral apparitions. Hey, Mitch!
Did you hear the questions?
Mitch! Looky, I'm coming for you. Ah! Have you seen Kissinger about? It's been a year of division. But the old binary dividing lines no longer characterize the new chaos we're drowning in. Social media has siloed itself into ever smaller echo chambers, cultural cliques, and generational ghettos. Someone had to try to make sense of it all, and hey, I guess it might as well be me and you guys. So let's start at the beginning, when tempers first started boiling over in January. January was a time where people demanded change and didn't get any, as it was out with the old and in with the older. In Germany, a climate protest got messy when a mystic mud wizard cast a transmute spell on the ground, turning these cops into bowling pins. On January 8th, Bolsonaro supporters turned the Brazilian Congress into an open-air urinal, and their capital into the worst festival of the year, so far. Bolsonaro himself hightailed it to Florida, choosing to spend his combination retirement/exile chowing down on churros at the Encore Resort in Orlando. Meanwhile, in France, the first of many large-scale protests kicked off over the pension reform law. Agitators set fire to parts of Paris to rebel against the proposed rise of the retirement age from 62 to 64. And you know, I'm sympathetic. By the age of 64, you should have the right to completely cease contributing to society. I mean, how can you be expected to do a half-decent job of anything at the impossibly decrepit age of 64? Meanwhile, in Washington, freshly elected members of Congress were sworn into both the Senate and the House of Representatives. The United States Senate is now the oldest it's ever been, with the average age of a senator being 64. At least the House of Representatives got a little younger this year with an injection of fresh blood, presumably to facilitate regular transfusions for its more senior members. Swilling around in this rapidly congealing bucket of vital fluid was the representative for New York's 3rd District, Anthony DeVolder. Sorry, I mean George Santos, a Botox-bloated identity thief, OnlyFans superfan, and former Brazilian drag queen. By the time Santos was sworn in, he was already embroiled in enough scandals to fill the annual H-Bomber Guy video. And yet, there was more to come. On the 13th, a gas pipeline exploded on the Lithuanian border with Latvia, briefly reminding people that these countries exist. China's National Bureau of Statistics announced their population had declined for the first time since Mao's Great Famine of 1960. On the same day, the oldest person currently living ended her heartbeat hot streak. Lucille Randon died at the tender age of 118, tragically struck down before she even had a chance to run for the US Senate. On February 14th, a toxic chemical spill on a Tucson highway caused chaos, with nitric acid clouds seen from miles away. Residents were told to shelter in place, while the internet told them that they were going to be the first victims of a third world war. Seems like an overreaction, but that's because something else was in the air in early February that had gotten us all a bit worked up. That's right, the first episode of Skibbity Toilet was uploaded to YouTube. This bizarre phenomenon would rack up over 14 billion views over the course of the year, inspiring befuddled confusion in anyone over the age of 14, and at least one Skibbity Toilet-themed birthday party. I'd call the video series a cultural flashpoint. It announced Generation A's arrival online and proved that their iPad-addled brains are being developed with all the grace and care of a multi-car train derailment. Speaking of which, on February 3rd, a 150-car train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, releasing toxic chemicals into the air in this cool-ass mushroom plume. Yeah. The internet reacted with characteristic calm, waiting for new evidence before coming to any conclusions.
And then they're telling everybody it's fine? Vinyl chloride, when you burn it, goes into the fucking atmosphere, bonds with water, and turns into acid rain.
Some Facebook moms claimed that journalists were being arrested for trying to attempt to enter East Palestine. Not true. Other unverified reports said animals were dying hundreds of miles away because of the toxic train fart. This was an exaggeration of the truth.
You guys scooping out all the dead ones?
In actual fact, 3,500 fish had died in the immediate vicinity of the derailment, a direct result of emergency workers intentionally breaching containers filled with toxic vinyl chloride. They did this to prevent another explosion. The Ohio derailment was a moderately serious environmental incident that was later framed as a government cover-up by politically motivated online disinformation. A narrative that landed because of another airborne incident that whipped everyone into a frenzy in early February.
Okay, that's the moon. It's a little fuzzy out here, and it's a kind of a cruddy phone, but it's slightly overcast. But what the heck is that?
On February 1st, something strange was spotted in the sky above Reed Point, Montana. A tiny white dot, a pea-shaped mystery that would send America into a frothy-mouthed hysteria. First video evidence of the dot was posted on February 2nd, along with expert on-the-ground analysis.
That's not the sun, and according to my little planet guide, it's not a planet. What the heck is that?
Once we had confirmed that the white speck wasn't the moon, sun, or, and I'm using a technical term here for you spaceheads, a planet, it left only one possible explanation. The floating sky spot was alien in origin, and by alien I mean not American. Photos of the mystery ball were published in the Billings Gazette, some kind of pre-internet information distribution device known as a newspaper. By February 3rd, new social media footage of the balloon poured in from Kansas and Missouri as it drifted towards North Carolina. It received enough media coverage for the US Department of Defense to announce that they were well aware of the high-altitude golf ball, and that they believed it was a Chinese surveillance balloon.
Again, we know that this is a Chinese balloon, but beyond that, I'm not going to have specifics.
While the Chinese government maintained it was a civilian aircraft that had flown way off course. Public pressure mounted, as social media worried that this Chinese spy balloon was gathering crucial intel on America's cornfields. The balloon launched from somewhere in Hainan province, drifted over the Pacific, where it might have been doing some spying close to Guam, before prevailing winds blew it off course. By February 4th, balloon hysteria had transfixed a nation. But with the mystery of its origin, purpose, and design solved, only one mystery remained. Why hadn't anyone shot it down yet? Was Joe Biden too pussy to pop the balloon? Well, this too was resolved at 2:39 p.m. when the balloon was shot down by an F-22 Raptor off the coast of Myrtle Beach.
We got it. Boom! Oh, I got it. Excited about. Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, fuck you, caught me, child.
And that was where the story should have ended. The balloon got smoked, and relations between the US and China got a little testy. Months later, technical experts revealed that the balloon's surveillance sensors had never even been activated during its journey across the contiguous United States. At least that's what they wanted you to believe. But it didn't end there, as 3 other high-altitude objects were spotted by onlookers later in the month. One over North Alaska, another spotted in the Yukon, or the last one was shot down over Lake Huron. In fact, they were all shot down before anyone could eyeball them real good. And this set off another round of hysterical internet speculation. Clearly, all that neck cricking had cut off the oxygen supply to people's brains.
There is no indication of aliens or terrestrial activity with these recent takedowns.
Looking back at the spy balloon incident, it's an easy joke to say it was all a bunch of hot air. But yeah, I think it was legitimately a mass hysteria. fueled by a perfect storm of cable news scaremongering, internet schizo posting, and the primal fear that something might fall out of the sky and conk you on the noggin. Anyway, while America was losing their collective marbles, things of actual societal substance were happening in the rest of the world. In El Salvador, it looked like a casting call was underway for the world's scariest gangbang. This viral clip was the result of Nayib Bukele's crackdown on El Salvador's gang-fueled murder rate. In 2022, the tiny country declared a state of emergency, which suspended the right to legal counsel and substantially increased the time suspects could spend in detention without charge. This might seem brutal and totalitarian, but since this no trial, no pants style of arrest, El Salvador's murder rate has plummeted, raising some deeply uncomfortable questions about the necessity of due process in such an anarchic state. On the second anniversary of its coup, the military government in Myanmar admitted to losing stable control over more than a third of townships. External observers suggested the real number was probably much higher. Rebels are solidifying their resistance, and if this viral video is genuine, 3D printing their guns. With strict internet restrictions, shifting loyalties, and a rapidly changing situation on the ground, it's very difficult for outsiders to understand what's happening in Myanmar. On March 10th, Xi Jinping was sworn in for an historic third term, holding his fist up throughout to symbolize his tightening grip on the country. The Gwyneth Paltrow ski crash trial surprised the world, as it turned out that there was someone alive today who made the Goop founder seem likable by comparison.
You're under oath here that you're a good tipper.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I wouldn't expect anything less.
On March 24th, this image of the Pope looking drippier than a dialysis patient went viral. As you probably know, it was an AI-generated image, first posted on the Mid-Journey subreddit by a now-deleted user. But once the image migrated to social media, it duped many a scroller, despite looking like early 2000s CGI. On March 24th, Amazon announced they were planning to fire 9,000 of their workers, after promising to cut nearly 20,000 employees back in January. Meta cut 10,000 jobs, while Twitch quietly canned 10% of their staff back in February. With Microsoft, Dell, PayPal, and Google all conducting similar firing sprees. Generative AI came just in time for these mass layoffs, as companies blamed the boogeyman for the post-COVID mass layoffs that they were probably going to do anyway. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise when big tech's favorite money hole went belly up in mid-March. Over a period of just 2 days, Silicon Valley Bank went from solvent to broke as depositors rushed to withdraw their funds. The website formerly known as Twitter was blamed for spreading the panic fast, with viral tweets like this one fanning the flames. This was a bankruptcy speedrun, with the financial institution declared defunct by the middle of the month. That's right, not even a bank can outrun the inevitable decay of all things. Ooh, the bell tolls for ye, Silicon Valley. Seriously though, has anyone seen Kissinger about? For a moment, it even looked like time was up for TikTok. Fueled by growing anti-China sentiment, Congress grilled TikTok CEO Shou Zichu. Their real concern was whether TikTok was just another Chinese surveillance tool, not spying on our bald spots, but on our precious Wi-Fi routers.
Mr. Chu, does TikTok access the home Wi-Fi network?
Only if the user turns on the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I may not understand the...
So if I have TikTok app on my phone and my phone is on my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network?
It will have to access the network to get connections to the internet, if that's the question.
The handsome CEO ran rings around the congressional questioners. At least that's what TikTok told me.
Room is out all night, so you can scream my name as loud as you need to, sugar.
Hey, sexy lady. But you know what? I find that actually preposterous.
That granny-ass wig you got on is preposterous, bitch.
This app connect to Wi-Fi? Why does this app remember my password?
Turns out Paris had been on fire this whole time. So much so that these diners had gotten used to it as just Bernie background music. The pension reform law was pushed through the Senate on the 16th of March, using a controversial procedure that allowed the bill to automatically pass without a proper vote. President Macron appeared on TV to explain why the peasants would have to toil for an extra 2 years, removing his watch midway through the interview. The internet seized on this moment, claiming that the president was removing an $80,000 watch for fear that he would appear elitist. In actual fact, the Bell & Ross timepiece was worth a lot less than the internet wanted to believe, and was removed because it was clunking against the table earlier than was shown in widely circulated clips.
Il y a les blocages, et les blocages, il faut pouvoir les lever quand ils empêchent l'activité normale. Et c'est pourquoi d'ailleurs...
But why let the truth get in the way of a good story? The following day, football fans demanded Macron's resignation as France continued to revolt well into April. April really was a big month for protests, the good, the bad, and the brain dead. But if we look at protests through the lens of their effectiveness rather than if we agree with the protesters or not, then I think we can learn something more profound. On April 1st, a huge crowd of Chengdu citizens toppled this not-so-great wall in China. Reportedly, the fence was built by residents in a wealthy property development to cut off poorer citizens from communal green spaces. Resistance was fierce and a little violent, and the fence stayed down. This protest had a single, tangible goal, which the protesters could directly achieve through collective action. Banging! 10 out of 10. Great protest. On 420, Elon rocked the Twitter landscape forever, conducting a Stalinist purge of the elitist blue check marks, who had only been given their blue ticks because they worked for the mainstream media. You know, those elitist organizations that fact-check stuff, do on-the-ground reporting, and can actually be held legally accountable for publishing bullshit. Elon celebrated this purge by launching the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built, and then blowing it up a few minutes later.
Hi! Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us.
Earlier in April, TikTok personality Dylan Mulvaney posted this video, sharing a 6-pack of custom Bud Light cans that she'd been gifted by the company with her face on them. Little did Anheuser-Busch realize, but they just committed social media seppuku. American conservatives declared that they were abandoning the brand by buying a bunch of it and using the cans as target practice. This part of the protest might have been dumb, but the overall boycott was incredibly effective. In just 1 week, Bud Light sales dropped by 11%, and by April 15th, they had dropped a further 21%. Several Anheuser-Busch executives were fired in the wake of the controversy, and sales are yet to recover. The American right led a successful assault in the culture war, a war they've pretty much been losing for the last 10 years. Other boycotts followed, which successfully made companies wary of coming across as too woke. A semi-successful one on Target's Pride Month merchandise followed in May, which resulted in this anti-Target rap from the mayor of MAGAville himself.
Yeah, they target, yeah, they target kids.
These protests, despite being nuclear-grade cringe, worked because they had a target, and their method had a material impact on the organizations they didn't like. It worked. The French pension protests were somehow still ongoing in April. The last legal challenges to the reform law were rejected, and it was signed into being on April 14th. The pension protests were noisy, costly, occasionally metal as fuck, but they didn't achieve their goal. The French capital is constantly in chaos. Also, I hate it and it smells bad. Invading the stock exchange is cool, but most of these protests were just dance parties or minor key riots. It's like protesting is a hobby for them. And if you complain about something every weekend, people will stop listening. On April 2nd, an explosion rocked this cafe in St. Petersburg, where an event was being held in celebration of Vladlen Tartarsky, real name Maxim Formin, a military blogger who amassed over 500,000 followers on Telegram by reporting on the Ukrainian conflict, and lightly criticizing the Russian military. Not for their many crimes, but rather for not doing enough of them. The cafe was reportedly owned by one Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the Wagner Group, but we'll catch up with him later. During the event, Tartarsky was handed a gold statuette of his own head by this woman, Daria Trepova, an award for all the hard work he'd done chastising the Russian military for not bombing Ukraine hard enough. Daria was initially blocked by his security, and Tartarsky later joked to the audience that this was because the literal monument to his own ego could be a bomb. Minutes later, the statue exploded, killing him and injuring several attendants. The footage is quite grisly, so I can't show it to you, so check out this laundromat explosion instead, which coincidentally happened on the same day. What a hilarious explosion. The laundromat one, that is. Now, this wasn't a protest per se, but whoever wanted this guy to shut the fuck up succeeded. They knew who their target was, and they neutralized him in a way that was dripping with enough dramatic irony to impress Chekhov. Forget Chekhov's gun, they blew him up with his own golden head. I'm sorry, but that is genius. In the UK, climate protests have produced many viral moments this year, none more so than this attention-grabbing display on April 17th.
These are terrible, terrible scenes here at the Crucible.
These public nuisance climate protests have been non-stop in the UK, and I'm going to go on record and say they are fucking toilet. Here's another one from May, where mopey, Cheeto-dusted teenagers spoiled the Chelsea flower show. Take that, florists! Or this one, from July, where Just Stop Oil zombie walked in front of traffic and stopped a mother from getting her infant son to the hospital. We're gonna save the planet, and I don't care how many kids we gotta kill to do it. The point of these public nuisance protests is to raise awareness, which these groups can only measure in views, clicks, and the news articles produced by their stunts. Whether they are received positively or negatively, it doesn't matter. On the Just Stop Oil website, they graciously compare themselves to Martin Luther King, and then claim these protests will eventually become so annoying that the government will be forced to act. But once the public know who you are and what you stand for, any more nuisance just diminishes your reputation. Doubly so for the people that aren't already sympathetic to your cause. A good protest is like good satire. It requires a target. So, when climate protesters storm the stage at oil giant Shell's annual meeting, that's good shit! Or how about smashing a plate full of cream into the face of a polluting airline CEO? Bullseye! Or these Aussie rascals who brought a special message to an event honouring Exxon CEO Darren Woods. Let's leave the protests that irritate and inconvenience the public in 2023 and get a little bit more targeted next year. Plenty of fossil fuel executives and commodity traders have been hustling uninterrupted all year. Maybe someone should give them an award for all their hard work. Or they could actually do something that actively helps the environment, like the sponsor of this video, Planet Wild. Planet Wild is a nature protection organisation that conducts individual rewilding missions and documents their efforts in YouTube videos. Find out how you can support their efforts at the end of this video, and also, maybe, receive a free gift. I know, very good. May was a month for celebration. Kind of.
Wait, so who made it? Wow.
The annual Met Gala took place on the 2nd, but focus was taken away from the clothes and celebrities when the internet decided to celebrate the arrival of a bottom-feeding cockroach at the red carpet event. And on May 6th, Britain did something similar, as the coronation of King Charles III was broadcast across the world. A drone crashed the party at the Kremlin, in an underwhelming display that briefly brought the fight to Moscow. While in Ukraine, Russian forces were starting to fracture, as the leader of Russia's biggest mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, aired out the defense minister in this furious clip.
Шойгу! Герасимов! Где боеприпасы?
he threatened to pull out from the hotly contested city of Bakhmut that his forces had secured while suffering heavy casualties. But it was an interview he gave with Russian military blogger War Gonzo that would serve as some pretty on-the-nose foreshadowing for what will happen next.
Потому что вы можете там пушки чуть ли не на Москву развернуть, пойти там крепость штурмовать и так далее. Ну, такие опасения, они насколько беспочвенны?
Thousands took to the street in Pakistan on May 9th to protest the arrest of former Prime Minister and cricket player Imran Khan. Authorities restricted access to social media and then conducted full internet shutdowns in regions where resistance was most fierce. Civilian crowds even targeted military installations, demonstrating the sway that Khan and his party still hold in the country. Later in the month, this Chinese maverick absolutely rattled an American surveillance aircraft over the South China Sea, stoking further tension between the two superpowers. It kind of peaked around this time, but if you ask me, the internet has been throwing fuel on the fire all year. Let's have a look at this phenomenon in a section I call Peking over the Great Firewall.
14块钱放22双，8块，8块，16块钱50个，一下来上车，10块。
On social media, viral China footage that's pushed to an English-language audience neatly falls into two distinct camps. First, there are viral clips like this one, smartly chosen snippets that depict China as a cyberpunk dystopia, which, you know, might not be entirely inaccurate, but it's definitely reductive. School surveillance clips like this one have been reposted like they're new since at least 2019. This stuff, occasionally, backfires spectacularly when it makes the country look cool as fuck. Is that a UFO? Hell yeah, dude! And look, I'm a little guilty of disseminating stuff like this myself. But next year, I'm going to try and be better. More informed. 我yi zai shu han yu hen nan. Then there's the opposing side. TikTok propaganda from China itself, with clips depicting the country as a high-tech wonderland.
Have you ever seen a train running on a road without tracks? It sounds like a fantasy, but it has actually happened in China.
Cinematic shots of the country's spanking new megacities with their plasma screen skyscrapers and high-speed rail systems. These clips are nearly never shot from street level though. Looks sick, right? Wonder what's happening where all the people are. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. China is so much more than its government. It's a 5,000-year-old civilization. They got 4,700 years on you, America, so listen up, whippersnappers, you might learn something from them. And you know what, America? You and them ain't so different. You're both real big and real powerful. You're both going broke buying stuff on your phones. You both eat some diabolical crap that would make any other nationality shit themselves standing up. And both your governments suck. Only difference is, you guys chose yours. Anyway, what I'm saying is, in 2024, let's just cool it off a bit, yeah? Focus more on what you have in common and less on what makes you different.
Dude, the shaver's working like a champ. Dude, I have like an indent right here. This is where my headphones go. I have a fucking headphone indent in my head? What the fuck?
On the 3rd of June, a Twitch streamer's charity head shave went viral when he discovered prolonged headphone use had collapsed his cranium. Don't worry, it wasn't permanent. But this bridge collapse in India sure was. On the 4th, a 1.9-mile construction project collapsed into the Ganges River in Bihar state. This was the second time too, as the project previously collapsed in April 2022. Infrastructure disasters like this one are common in India. They are ambitious projects that are approved, but then corruption, cut corners, and poor construction quality lead to disaster. And no one owns up to it. Here is the minister for Bihar blaming his political rivals for demolishing the bridge intentionally. Speaking of shoddy workmanship, the most talked about story in June was undoubtedly the Ocean Gate Titan incident, as the internet straight up reveled in the prospect of this submarinal smushing. Apparently, because these guys were rich, that justified completely overruling any empathy they were entitled to. Although, yes, fine, the fact that the submarine was operated by an Xbox controller was objectively very funny. If someone started to press L1 to descend, I'd like to think I'd be button mashing the emergency exit before it went underwater, but who's to say? And yes, another round of riots started in where? You guessed it, France. Quelle surprise. The fatal shooting of a teenager by police in a Paris suburb sparked nationwide chaos. Hundreds of arrests, and some twat ploughed his sports car through the front of a Lidl.
You say you are a dreamer.
On the 5th, Apple announced the Apple Vision Pro. The dumbest thing that I will absolutely blow 3,500 beans on. I already do have a little trouble telling what's real and what isn't, so might as well just submit to full-blown cyber psychosis now. I wouldn't worry about it. You do you. Thanks, Sergeant Bunny. Meanwhile, reality was also getting firebombed on the front line of Europe's fucked up future war.
Yes!
Russian forces continuously fired missiles at Kyiv and critical infrastructure from far-off positions, while Ukrainian drone operators became unlikely viral stars.
Yeah, buddy!
We even got to witness one of the first uses of deep fake tech in warfare. Broadcasts in some Russian regions were hijacked as Putin's fake face was broadcast, attempting to stoke panic about a future theoretical Ukrainian offensive. It didn't work, at all, but how long till something like this does? Personally, I give it 5 or 10 years. But June really belonged to one man. My man of the year, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Since his pro-wrestling style call-out of the Russian defense minister in May, Prigozhin and the Wagner Group's celebrated position in Russian culture was looking perilous. Until then, the Wagners were rock stars, portrayed as action heroes in recruitment commercials shown on Russian state TV. But as anyone who watches Russia from afar knows, the country's politics is often an intentionally twisted web of loyalties. Maybe this apparent rift was just a stunt to lull Ukrainian forces into a false sense of security. Then, on the morning of the 23rd, Prigozhin logged on for another one of his signature angry battlefield vlogs, claiming that the Russian army had fired missiles at his forces and killed many of his men, and claimed that Russian elites had deceived the public in order to gain support for the war, and that they were concealing the true number of soldiers killed. Without explicitly saying it, Prigozhin had just declared a mutiny. In the early morning of June 24th, Prigozhin led a Wagner convoy away from the Ukrainian front, crossing back into Russia and capturing the city of Rostov-on-Don. Social media footage showed Wagner forces surrounding the MOD building, a critical location. Citizens on the ground stuck around to catch what was going on, watching as this Wagner tank operator showed off his sick drifting skills. Prigozhin's men spent the rest of the morning capturing the headquarters of the Southern Military District and the police department, and stopping by for a quick Mackie D's. Mutiny can work up a hefty appetite. Speaking from the district headquarters, Prigozhin finally showed his horrific pig face, claiming that they had occupied all military installations across the city, including the airfield. He was then seen here swinging dick in a staged meeting with the Russian Deputy Minister of Defense and a Deputy Chief of Russian Intelligence. The mercenary boss was steps away from declaring himself the big boss and proclaiming Rostov as outer heaven. Over in St. Petersburg, police were filmed raiding Wagner HQ, while in Moscow, PR damage control was already in full swing as workers hurried to tear down Wagner recruitment billboards. Russian state TV seemed less concerned, broadcasting this jaunty little parkside bop instead of anything to do with the potential coup. While this Rostov cyclist decided to troll Russian history with his own contribution to the coup's soundtrack. An hour later, Wagner forces were already on the move, as a huge convoy of military vehicles were filmed on the outskirts of Voronezh, halfway between Rostov-on-Don and the Russian capital. The column kept moving, driving through improvised roadblocks and downing several Russian jets and helicopters. The stage was set, having easily overwhelmed what little resistance they ran into. Yevgeny and his boys looked set to topple the Russian state. Vladimir Putin addressed the nation and denounced their actions as treason. Prigozhin repeatedly tried to contact Putin, but was rebuffed at every attempt. Surely his only option was to burn Moscow down. Oh yeah, it's 1812 all over again, yeehaw! Let's make history, boys, woo! Except, no. Instead, we were told that the president of Belarus, Alex Lukashenko, stepped in and talked the Wagner leader down. Prigozhin was then given safe passage to Belarus, where he was later photographed in a tent and in his pants. We don't really know what went down to inspire this climb down. We probably never will, but what I do know is that it was the biggest cock tease in modern history. For a few sweet, glorious hours, it looked like Putin's multi-decade rule could be coming to a close. But by the 28th, he looked as steady as ever in this pitch-perfect piece of political theatre, boarding a presidential aircraft and subtly adjusting the uniform of the officer carrying the nuclear codes. Nice. Yeah, total wipeout, complete disappointment. I'm going to need the next flight out to Kent, Connecticut. That's where Henry Kissinger lives, if that wasn't obvious. In July, we needed something new. Some fresh, original ideas. As long as they were based on previously popular intellectual property to ensure brand recognition. Elon renamed Twitter as X, blinding everyone with his hubris and Twitter HQ's neighbors with this piece of rooftop pirate bait. For Mark Zuckerberg, this X marked the spot, as he took time away from his jiu-jitsu lessons to launch Threads, Meta's answer to Twitter. Instagram's 2 billion users were prodded to sign up to the service, breaking records as 100 million people downloaded the app in a week, and then promptly forgot it existed. Elon called Zuck a cuck for copying the service he bought off someone else last year, as the two billionaires spiraled into an online feud that threatened to turn physical. Barbenheimer was the portmanteau, look it up, of the year, and excitement finally reached its zenith in July. The meme of mushing the titles of these aesthetically opposing movies together had gotten stale by mid-March, but Mattel's marketing team grabbed this lemon of authentic internet enthusiasm and squeezed it till the pips shot through the ceiling. Barbie's branding blitzkrieg painted the world pink all summer, ending in Hollywood's hardest hit of the year. Oppenheimer did pretty well too, especially for a barely audible movie that spent at least 1/3 of its runtime on some guy's security clearance getting revoked. Yawn.
Ice cream so good, yes, yes, yes. Oh, thank you, baby, this is so cute. Yes,
on timelines everywhere, this woman was inescapable, injecting the concept of NPC streaming into my brain against my will.
Roses, yum. Yeehaw.
A trend where people reduce themselves to mindless playthings for the amusement of a mass audience that's either sat on the toilet or jerking off, or both.
Hey, thanks for the... Man, I hate July. Thanks for the... Hey, GG, my... Hey, thanks for the rose. I'll make sure to give those to Peter.
In a 1970s flashback, Henry Kissinger managed to make his way to China to meet Xi Jinping in a weird-as-hell photo op. What do you mean he's in China? There's no point in me coming here. Just get me the first flight out now. He's 100 years old. In Las Vegas, videos of a strange orb provoked wonder and awe, as well as sleepless nights for any poor sucker who'd booked a hotel room overlooking it. The MSG sphere is a true modern marvel, and a perfect temple for a society that has abandoned God and now worships the all-powerful screen. Plans to build an identical sphere in the UK were abandoned later in the year, as we were too busy with another mega project. On July 18th, people in Britain got angry as the Bibby Stockholm docked in Portland, Dorset. Built in 1976, the three-story barge was converted to house people in 1992. It has since been used as a hotel, accommodation for the homeless, and to house asylum seekers in Rotterdam. The UK planned to use it for the same thing, but public perception of the migrant barge was mixed, to say the least. Protesters made it out to be little more than a concentration camp at sea, while the Daily Mail claimed it was a luxury flotel. Anyway, the floating prison/resort didn't start welcoming prisoners/guests until August 7th, and then was almost immediately evacuated when dangerous bacteria was found in its water system. But honestly, I'd rather take my chances on the Bibby than literally any commercial airplane this year.
Can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two f***s, but I am telling you right now, that back there is not real.
In July, this woman absolutely lost her shit while her plane was still sitting on the tarmac in Dallas. And honestly, I've never related to anyone more. Seriously, what the hell is happening on airplanes this year? I'm sure it's not just me and her who've noticed something weird is going on up there. I started this year as a mildly nervous flyer, able to calm myself down in turbulence by sweating into my seat and downing a few of those little vodkas they ration out. But then in March, TikTok's algorithm decided to shake me to my core with the aftermath of this chaotic flight out of Austin.
I thought they were losing control of the airplane.
I think we were falling for a little bit.
Yeah, see, we were only falling for a little bit. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This was followed in April by similar footage from a flight to Portugal. Please, God, let me survive this. I promise I'll be good. I'll kill all your enemies. I'll establish a caliphate, whatever you want. And I'm not the only one losing my cool. In May, this guy decided to get some fresh air by opening the emergency door during the flight's descent over Korea. There's been plenty more turbulence footage this year, but I don't want to infect you with my sickness, so let's get straight to the facts. Is turbulence getting more common, or is this fear just a product of algorithmically induced anxiety? Well, this study explains that since 1979, severe clear air turbulence has risen by 55% on North Atlantic routes, with the researchers blaming climate change for this gradual increase in bumpy rides. But look, turbulence isn't actually anything to worry about. Not really, as TikTok itself is here to provide the antidote to the poison it flew into my brain.
And that is you flying through the sky. There's pressure from the bottom, pressure from the top, from the sides, pressure coming from everywhere, okay? And now, when there's turbulence, it's like this. You feel the plane shaking, but this is not just gonna fall down. You know, it's stuck in there because there's pressure coming from the bottom and the sides. So this is what turbulence is.
See, nothing to worry about. We're all just encased in jelly, powerless to do anything about anything, nothing to shit yourself over. Someone could have told that to whoever used this flight's aisle as a bathroom, forcing the flight to land due to the biohazard. The most mysterious epidemic this year has been airborne psychosis. I don't know what's causing it. Maybe it's the turbulence, or maybe it's something more mystical. In January, a man on a Chinese flight sent the whole cabin into a panic when he claimed to be caught in a time loop, having experienced a crash 6 times already. Of course, there was this lady and her reality-bending outburst, but most of these airplane freakouts were just the result of people being dicks.
No, you seen it. No, she didn't. She put, no. I'm allowed to put my seat back. I'm allowed to put my seat back.
Maybe it's a post-COVID thing. People have gotten so used to having their own personal space that they've forgotten how to act in public. With an entitlement to inconvenience others and a new boldness to point a camera phone at someone having a mental health episode. Finally, there was this lunatic who has apparently gained an enormous TikTok following and somehow dodged the no-fly list, all while conducting shrimp and battery acid cookouts in airplane bathrooms. For me, flying commercial in 2023 has just become too scary and dangerous to bother with, so I'll be flying private from now on. Luckily my bro has his own jet. Come on, Yevgeny, let's fly. August was a month of entitlement and resentment, as people got what was theirs and what was coming to them. Taylor Swift single-handedly saved you all from recession, as the American leg of her Eras tour came to an end in California, shooting Taylor into the Free Comma Club in the process, but the song of the summer really belonged to this trailer park Ed Sheeran motherfucker.
Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Oliver Anthony enjoyed his 3 minutes and 10 seconds of fame with Rich Men North of Richmond, an emotional dirge that called out nameless elites, the morbidly obese, and the unequal times we are living in. And look, the song slapped. What can you say? At least we could all laugh at the rich poverty cosplayers who got caught in the mud at Burning Man. Before bad weather blighted the festival, attendees were up to their usual try-hard antics. But unprecedented rain left festival goers up to their knees in trouble, and probably their own shit. A few tried to party on because they'd already pounded too many pills to consider an alternative, while Diplo and Chris Rock made their escape on the back of this pickup truck. Twitch streamer Kay Cenat announced a console giveaway to his 6 million followers. Around 6,000 people showed up, and upon realizing they weren't getting a PS5, decided to start playing GTA IRL. Over in Gabon, the bongos went bye-bye as a military coup ended the family's 55-year hold on power. In Argentina, the presidential election campaign got interesting as Javier Milei emerged as a real contender.
Hola, soy Javier Milei, el libertario. Y este es un saludo para todos los que nos siguieron hoy en el programa de Viviana y para todos aquellos que me acompañan en dar la lucha contra los colectivistas hijos de recontra remil puta que nos quieren cagar la vida. Así que les mando un abrazo grande y como corresponde. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
A hardcore libertarian known for his erratic outbursts and dressing up as a superhero named Captain ANCAP. But he reached worldwide notoriety in August with this clip as he outlined his plan to scrap the majority of government ministries.
Turismo y deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera.
But the question on everyone's lips in August was, where in the world is Yevgeny Prigozhin? In the weeks since his coup, Yevgeny made some brief appearances, although his real location was often contested. Police raided his luxury apartment as photos of him wearing various disguises migrated online. On August 21st, he appeared in this video. He was apparently somewhere in Africa, where he was inviting Russian forces to join the Wagners on the continent, leading some to naively wonder whether Putin would attempt to rehabilitate his image somehow. But anyone who's followed Putin's career for longer than a nanosecond knows exactly how he feels about traitors.
А вы умеете прощать?
Да. Но не все.
А что невозможно простить?
Предательство.
2 days later, and exactly 2 months on from his failed coup, Prigozhin boarded the Wagner Group's private jet in Moscow, along with 9 others. The jet was then filmed falling from the sky, 60 miles north of the capital, ultimately crashing and killing everyone on board.
Это крылья, думаешь?
Вот там движок.
A dramatic and deeply ironic way for this Russian Icarus to leave the world behind, especially considering what he said in this interview earlier in the year.
Лучше убейте меня. Но я не буду обманывать, я должен честно сказать, Россия стоит на грани катастрофы. Если сегодня не отрегулировать эти винтики, то самолет рассыпется в воздухе.
Fans mourned the death of their hero, while Wagner HQ displayed this subtle memorial to their fallen leader. RIP to a real one, the Russian Icarus Yevgeny Prigozhin, Man of the Year 2023, rest in peace. In September, the war on reality got fierce as the fake jostled with the actual. In Mexico, the country's Congress served as a live audience for an extra special and extraterrestrial unboxing video.
Esos cuerpos, que de acuerdo a los científicos que van a declararlo aquí,
For true believers, this was irrefutable proof that aliens lived among us, while anyone with an IQ above room temperature could see this was a bit sus. In actual fact, these cute little guys are likely the product of a 2017 crowdfunding campaign started by known UFO fraudsters. The real mystery is how these guys secured their audience in Congress, but some mysteries aren't worth the trouble they take to investigate. In China, the Asian Games began with an unreal opening ceremony in Hangzhou. Truly, it featured no actual fireworks and made heavy use of drones and electric lights. Except on TV, where computer-generated fireworks fooled home audiences, and even local newspapers wrote of fireworks ringing out around the city, even though there were none.
These are the first smart glasses that are built and shipping with Meta AI in them.
On September 20th, the Zuck announced Meta's latest collaboration with Ray-Ban, a pair of AI-assisted glasses that make it easier than ever to live stream your life hands-free. A worrying development considering what's been happening in the world of IRL streaming this year.
You can't catch me. Hey, stop it.
It's all good. You probably have a great life, huh? Just being fat as shit.
Despite the relatively small audience they are acting out for, IRL streamers have had an oversized impact on online culture this year, making headlines by acting like major league ball bags for an audience of teenage boys and bot sport from India. At the end of the month, New York suffered one of its wettest days ever, as Storm Ophelia acted like a real New Yorker and dodged the fare for the subway. I don't want to do it, man. You can't make me. You can't make me. I don't want to do it. It's a no-win scenario. No, I know. All right, fine, fine. I don't even know why I'm arguing with you. You're just me mumbling into a mic. There was really only one story in October, which I could say all started on the 7th, but even saying that is going to get me in trouble with some of you.
Massive rocket fire continuing from Gaza. This is clearly a coordinated operation by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other factions inside the Strip.
The facts that everyone can agree on go like this. Hamas militants traveled into what many people call Israel and killed quite a lot of people, which provoked the IDF to kill even more people over the coming months. All of this has been needlessly and profoundly tragic. If you think otherwise, turn in your human card, you're a fucking monster. It is the most brutal crisis in the Israel-Palestine conflict since the Gaza War of 2008. But this latest tragedy is happening in a completely different media landscape. Wars are no longer the sole narrative domain of state propaganda or cable news. As today, the least informed morons on the planet can cover international conflicts from their bedrooms.
The UN Secretary General says Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children, with over 4,000 gone and over 1,000 missing under the rubble. 다이조부잖아요.
According to some, TikTok has been brainwashing America's youth to make them sympathetic to Palestine. And that's true, if by brainwashing they mean making teenagers aware of basic historical facts that make the Israeli state look pretty terrible.
Since World War II, the United States has given over $200 billion to Israel in aid, adjusted for inflation.
But the real info war was on Twitter. X. Whatever. Since Elon took over, the X platform has become a safe haven for misinformation. And the problem has gone into overdrive since October 7th. Misattributed and misleading clips are rife, often seen by millions before they are haphazardly corrected by community notes. Now, Israeli state propaganda isn't faring any better, and they better face facts because Israel is losing the war of public opinion. After decades of cushy support from American mass media, the IDF's social media strategy looks complacent, cruel, and cringe AF.
We're live on YouTube with Colombia Anti-Semitic News, where everyone is welcome. LGBTQH.
H.
Hamas.
For a country half populated by trust fund cokehead EDM DJs, you'd think they'd find some conscripts that could actually dance to a beat. There is so much to say about this conflict and how the internet is treating it like a team sport. But if there's one thing I've learnt this year, it's that you should be prepared to question even your most fundamental positions. Picking a side is the first step to shutting off your critical faculties. And if someone tells you that this conflict is simple or morally binary, they aren't trying to convince you of the truth, they're trying to convince you of their indisputable moral character. In November, the rubber really hit the road as we barreled towards an uncertain future. On the 11th, the Interstate 10 in Los Angeles went up in smoke, closing the usually busy freeway for over a week. While in Kabul, the Taliban's elite skate-mounted security forces were rolling through traffic. After 2 years in power, these boys want you to know this ain't your daddy's Afghanistan. They're internet savvy. They're holding talks with China, and they aren't completely allergic to outside influence, unless that influence is trying to make them respect women. In Panama, a 77-year-old motorist's approach to traffic was a little more extreme, as Kenneth Darlington became a viral star for committing cold-blooded murder. He was snapped in this bizarrely photogenic image as he opened fired at traffic-blocking climate protesters, becoming a meme and a folk hero to anyone who's had their capacity to feel empathy scorched from their head. And for the time being, tensions between China and the US seem to have mellowed, at least for a little bit, as Joe Biden and Xi Jinping took my advice during the latter's visit stateside. While there were some snafus and some street-bound controversy, the two leaders took some time to bond over something that they had in common: their shared love of big-ass cars.
Oh, it's like that Cadillac we have over there. You know what they call that car? They call it the Beast.
November was also a month where high office was brought low, as rebels and long-term critics would seize the microphone and rip ass into it. In Albania, members of the Democratic Party made a bonfire in the middle of their parliament in a protest of the current government, because nothing pitches you as a reasonable alternative like setting fire to the joint. Tensions erupted in the US Capitol on November 14th when an argument between two US senators nearly became a full-on brawl.
Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
Oh,
guy.
stop it.
Is that your solution, everybody?
No, sit down. Sit down. Okay.
No one wanted to see this fight more than me. Well, except maybe this guy. Unfortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and we'd have to wait a whole month before we finally got to see two guys coming to blows in a Senate hearing room. But by far, the most shocking political upset of 2023 was the result of Argentina's presidential election, where the underdog candidate came out as leader of the pack. Now, it wasn't so surprising that Argentina would seek out a radical alternative to the status quo. After suffering under triple-digit inflation and a series of governments unable to tame the country's unstable economy, voters have sought a novel solution.
Al zurdo de mierda no le podés dar ni un milímetro.
Pero ¿me podés definir zurdo de mierda que no
Todos
lo
los que,
entiendo?
digamos, los colectivistas, los que ponen, digamos, o sea, esa idea... A ver,
¿Por qué le pones de mierda, digamos?
Porque son una mierda.
To call this guy an eccentric would be like calling Muhammad Ali a decent sparring partner. He is a radical libertarian who has promised to cut $20 billion from the public sector and abolish the central bank. He won the country over in September with his plan to fix the economy. That plan? To embrace the US dollar as the country's main currency, symbolized by this giant $100 bill with his weird little head on it. Last time I saw a guy hold up his own head, it didn't go well. But then again, the more I've learnt about this guy's story, the more I like him. Because it's an emotional, inspiring story about one man and his dog. Milei had a tough upbringing, suffering domestic abuse from both of his parents, and his adult life has been a lonely one too. He's never married or had children, but remains close to his sister, who he claims will serve as his first lady. And if that sounds a bit weird, that's not even half of it. His life changed completely in 2003 when Milei met Conan, an English Mastiff puppy that he claims was like a son to him.
En lo productivo, somos superiores moralmente, somos superiores estéticamente, somos mejores en todo, y les duele.
He rose to public prominence on TV, where he quickly became the most interviewed economist in the country. Not because he was clever, but because he was so goddamn entertaining.
¡Zurdos, hijos de puta, tiemblen! ¡La libertad avanza! ¡Viva la libertad, carajo! ¡Vamos!
But you know, he really believes in freedom, expressing support for low-ass tax, lax gun laws, and even the legalization of the organ trade. Now, Conan sadly died in 2017, but Milei says that this death was merely physical, as he regularly speaks to his cherished dog child through a telepathic connection, asking him for political advice whenever he needs. You see, Conan's death was not in vain, because according to Milei, his goodest boy now sits at God's right-hand side, guarding the big man himself. And thanks to this little bit of canine on deity networking, Milei started conversing with the Almighty too, claiming that his pursuit of the presidency was a God-given mission. In 2018, Milei spent $50,000 in order to clone Conan, resulting in the birth of 6 puppies, one of which he named Conan, while the others were given the names of notable libertarian economists. And look, he really did love this dog. Just look at the way he gets distracted when an interviewer puts a picture of the original Conan up in the studio.
Por el ejemplo de Conan. Sí, este es Conan. Por el ejemplo de tu hijo, alguna vez te escuché, creo que fue en el programa. Este es Conan. Creo que fue en el programa de Andy, Kundesoff, creo, si no corregime. Que criticaste a tu viejo.
I honestly do find him quite endearing in this clip, and so did Argentina, apparently. He was elected president on the 20th of November, and his first act online was to post this AI-generated image to his Instagram titled Family Album. He thanked his 4-legged clone family in his victory speech, and even had their droopy faces engraved on the presidential scepter. This story does make me wonder if I suffered a brain injury sometime in October and these last couple months have just been some kind of surreal coma dream. But if 2024 is going to be this funny, I don't want to wake up. In equally great news, Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy for his role in the collapse of crypto exchange FTX. Sentencing won't take place until March, but it looks like the only thing Sam will be trading in from now on is cigarettes. Ironically, in the week of his sentencing, the price of Bitcoin started rapidly climbing for the first time since FTX's collapse. Even El Salvador's Bitcoin bet started paying off.
Si vas a pagar impuestos, bueno, por lo menos lo quiero ver en obras.
If you'll recall, in my 2021 video, the country's president, Nayib Bukele, began buying heaps of Bitcoin with state funds. For the first time since then, his total investment was briefly worth more than what he's paid for it. At least according to this website that tracks his and the country's portfolio.
Welcome to the rebirth of our country. Welcome to El Salvador. Thank you very much.
Bukele's unique approach to the country's finances and his no-mercy war on crime have maintained his popularity. He is now campaigning for a second term and is largely expected to win. For me, the diverting fortunes of these 2 high-profile crypto goons speaks volumes about crypto itself. The guys you hear talking big game about altcoins and complex trading techniques are just trying to sell you on their own genius. They are mostly scam artists. Ultimately, it is the humble hodler that has the best chance of coming out on top. Bitcoin's sudden uptick was also great timing for Tesla fans, as the first Cybertrucks made their long-awaited arrival to people's front doors. Elon joined Joe Rogan for a special episode where the dynamic duo fired an arrow at the stainless steel future car. Personally, I think the Cybertruck's very cool, But I'm just a sucker for things that are much bigger or much smaller than they should be. In the same way, I was thoroughly entertained by seeing Elon wear the world's smallest bulletproof vest in Israel. Elon made time for a quick apology tour of the country after legit claims that he was platforming anti-Semitic content on X. Frazzled too by manufacturing struggles at Tesla, Elon seemed stressed. Finally cracking on the 30th in this interview where he was asked about major advertisers abandoning his hate-filled platform.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
To round out a busy month, Henry Kissinger finally kicked the bucket, with his death getting announced hours after I made a joke about his immortality in my last YouTube video. Bastard, worst thing he ever did. December has been a polarizing conclusion. Some storylines were wrapped up as arcs reached their end and villains were defeated. But an exhausting series of post-credit scenes established some new threats and confirmed things were only going to get worse. A British newsreader was caught summarising how I felt looking back at this year in a quick, candid moment. The trailer for GTA 6 finally released, but everyone would have to wait until 2025 before seeing themselves in Vice City. Well, everyone except this guy who claimed his likeness had been stolen for the trailer.
GTA, we got the truck. You think I'm playing? You got 3 days.
It was so nice talking to you today. Honestly, I've never met anyone like you.
A promotion for an AI girlfriend app named Digi triggered X users in mid-December, as AI Frady Cat saw this Pixar porn parody app as a sign that humankind's breeding spree was coming to an inevitable end. On December 1st, George Santos finally got the sack, becoming the 6th ever House member to be expelled from Congress. Santos was really the perfect heel, a liar and con man whose crimes look bad to anyone regardless of their political beliefs. He also seemed to luxuriate in his role, a little bit, taking to it with enough camp to put a 90s Disney villain to shame.
The lesson is to stop inviting you places.
But you can't, because people want the content.
For whatever reason, he is clearly a glutton for punishment. Even after being expelled in disgrace, he still seeks the stage for another public flogging, paying his legal fees by recording clips like this on Cameo.
I'm so proud of you for coming out as a furry, and I just wanted to tell you that your friends and family all accept you, and they're all excited about your persona, which is awesome to be a beaverpuss. A beaver and a platypus.
But it looks like Washington already misses their convenient scapegoat, as the Capitol has only gotten camper in his absence. Jill Biden's holiday dress-up video looked like a scene from a musical adaptation of The Hunger Games. Days later, a congressional aide filmed himself getting back shots in a Senate hearing room. The congressional aide was already known for being a bit horny on main and had been asked to tone it down. Over in Turkey, MP Hassan Bitmez was midway through a speech calling for Israel to face the wrath of Allah, when he suddenly became the victim of an Old Testament smiting, or a sudden heart attack depending on your religious inclinations. On the Red Sea, Houthi rebels in Yemen did more than just pray for Israel's downfall, and actually took action. The Iran-backed rebels hijacked their first ship in November, posting the footage online a few hours later. Throughout December, the group fired on several more commercial vessels, claiming that they would attack any vessel on its way to Israel, forcing companies, including oil giant BP, to cease transit through the area. With Israel, and more importantly oil, in the crosshairs, it was only a matter of time before America stepped in. On the 17th, the US announced that they would lead Operation Prosperity Guardian, along with 9 other countries, who were tired of waiting for their AliExpress orders. The Houthi rebels responded with a hastily edited video of their Air Force, posted unironically with the Top Gun soundtrack underneath, which I can't use for copyright reasons, so here's my rendition. You get the idea. The slightly funny thing about this is that the Houthis are a non-state rebel group, and this may well be their only jet. Hardly a worthy adversary for the US and its allies. But hey, it's been year since America was immersed in a pointless Middle East forever war, isn't it time they gave it another go? And it couldn't be better timing, as I've heard there's a bunch of undiscovered oil reserves under the Red Sea itself. I'm joking though, this isn't about oil, it's about the transportation of oil. Very different. Anyway, this is all still in motion while I'm recording this video, so we'll have to wait until 2024 to see how it all turns out. Now, I'm just about old enough to remember when the internet was a place you could walk away from. Today, we don't have that luxury. The internet is now a significant battleground in real-world conflicts. It's where elections are won and lost. It's where fortunes are made and where most of our relationships begin. To ignore the internet is to resign yourself to the old, dying world of the previous century. The exciting thing about this century is that we can connect with more people and consume more information than ever before, to the point where the options are basically infinite. But with that comes fatigue and confusion, and a need to treat all these new people and new ideas with increased suspicion, because many of these ideas and people aren't worth knowing. This year has humbled me. It's made me realize that opinions are the cheapest currency around. Debates can be satisfying, but they are also emotionally stunting. The smartest people aren't the ones that project certainty. They are the ones who are prepared to question even their most fundamental positions and reverse them if the evidence stacks up. The real danger of modern times isn't that we'll fail to tell the fake world from the real one. It's that we'll know the world is fake and choose to live in that one anyway because it's comfortable. Because everyone who lives there tells us what we want to hear. Embrace new ideas, but keep your guard up, because everything is only going to get more interesting. I'm pleased to announce this video was made possible by the guys over at Planet Wild, a nature protection organisation funding ecosystem restoration projects to preserve our nature and wildlife. Every month, they go on a mission to bring back endangered species, clean up our oceans, and restore forests. To me, they are the real deal because they set tangible goals that have measurable, real-world impact. Whether it's planting food forests in Senegal, training wildfire fighters in Sicily, or resurrecting dying forests. By signing up as a supporter on their app, you can vote on how you want your funds to be used, receive monthly reports on their app, and see the impact your contribution makes. Become a supporter today, and the first month is on us. Free as a gift when you use code ORDINARYTHINGS. Just hit the QR code up here and click the link in the description to support the cause. If you want to check out their latest mission, saving the African savanna elephant with the help of wild honeybees, click right here.